Deargurgling Crazy at the concert arena. Let's not meet. When I was a teenager, I worked for a concert production company and a couple related companies that did merch at local shows. The venues for these shows range from festivals to all ages venues to the occasional huge gig. This encounter takes place at a teen girl pop show. Word to the wise, if you work in the music business and want to take a glimpse behind this true curtain of creeperhood, go to a show put on by a teenage female musician. Most of the audiences were teenagers, sure, but there was a desperately high amount of weird fucking dudes who didn't appear to have any daughters in tow. My job at this particular show was to walk through the crowd and sell stuff. It wasn't really a bad job, lots of exercise, fun atmosphere, and you got to watch the show sorta, kinda. Which wasn't that great when it was Christina Aguilera or Hilary Duff, but when it was a band you like, that's pretty cool. Anywho, about 2/3 of the way through the show, I sold all my glow sticks and had to duck backstage to get more. But it turns out the stash backstage was all gone too. So one of the management guys gave me some keys and told me to head down to the lower level to grab some out of the storage. This is the level that had locker rooms and access tunnels for the basketball team that usually plays there. The lower level that wasn't taken up with sports stuff was just assorted weird storage and access tunnels, not an area of the arena I was super familiar with. Once I took the elevator down, it hit me that despite the fact that there was a show going on right that second, the entire lower level on my side of the arena seemed like it was completely deserted. In a 14K seat building, this was really weird. Unless it was way after hours, there are almost never any time you are completely alone. I go about 100 or so feet down the hallway from the elevator, then rounded a corner and actually thought I saw a zombie for a second. There was a relatively young adult man standing in the hallway, kind of twitching and gurgling like he was having trouble breathing. He kept making really weird noises in the back of his throat, and he was looking up at the lights of the ceiling. After reminding myself zombies weren't actually real, I worried he might actually be having a seizure, so I did something really stupid. I called out, "Hey! Are you okay?" It didn't even occur to me that calling out to a stranger adult acting weirdly in a deserted area was a bad news for a skinny teenage girl. He snapped his head up incredibly quickly, and the look on his face was just angry and malicious. He didn't look like he was in distress, he looked like he wanted to murder me. He was a pretty normal looking guy by standard creeper metrics. Decent hygiene, clean shaven, wasn't dressed like a slob. But there was something in his eyes that was just not right. It was like he didn't see me at all. So obviously, I did the brave thing and turned around and ran as fast as I could back to the elevator. I can't say for sure if I really heard footsteps following after me or if I just imagined it. I reported him to the venue security because he was in a secure area. So secure in the theory that elevator should have had a guard on it at all times, but for whatever reason, it didn't. Or maybe he didn't even use the elevator. Who knows how or why he got in there. I never personally found out what happened, but the paper reported the next day that 6 people were arrested for drug use at the venue, and I wonder if he might have been one of them. If he was tweaked out of his mind, it would have explained the completely terrifying behavior. It wouldn't explain why he was an adult male possibly on his own at a girl pop show for young teens though. Yikes. Pepsi Pusher. When I was roughly 6 or 7 months pregnant with my daughter, my cousin asked me to go to an Evanescence concert with her in a neighboring city. We were pretty excited and had pretty decent seats that were in front of the stage, but right behind the floor standing area. Since I was pretty far along, my cousin offered to get us drinks and a snack to tide us over until after the concert. She had only been gone for about 5 minutes when this older man sat down next to me. Immediately, the man began to strike up a conversation about the concert, if I had heard the opening band and just casual concert chatter. He was slightly overweight, balding, and just had this oddness to him. Not wanting to be rude, I gave short answers and fiddled on my phone, hoping he'd get the idea that I wasn't really interested in speaking with him. A few minutes of awkward silence passed when he suddenly began asking questions regarding my pregnancy. These weren't typical questions either. How big did my breast get? Does my baby fall asleep or get squirmy when I have an orgasm? And a few other things along those lines. I was extremely uncomfortable and just decided to ignore the guy when another man a row behind us heard all these questions and tapped me on the shoulder to ask if I was okay, and to glare at the pervert until he left. I quickly breathed a sigh of relief and thanked the stranger. He told me no problem and said just give him the word if the pervert comes back. Thankfully, my cousin returned only a few minutes later, and the concert began. It wasn't until halfway through the show when there was a quick break, and the pervert showed up again next to me. This time he laughingly said the concession attendant gave him an extra fountain soda by mistake and offered it to me. I politely said no thank you and told him I didn't like soda and that my cousin already had gotten me a drink. He glared at me and kept insisting that I take the drink. Finally, to shut him up, I took the drink but put it on the floor between my cousin and I. He seemed much happier when I took it, and the rest of the concert I could feel him eyeing me and saw that he was muttering to himself. The concert finishes, and so we got up to leave, and for me to hit the bathroom, when the man suddenly took my hand. I felt bile rise up in my throat and snatched my hand away. He looked at me shocked and then glanced down at the untouched soda and immediately began screaming at me for not drinking his soda and how he bought it especially for me. The man wouldn't let me pass, and the place was crowded with people trying to get to their cars. I felt trapped with this guy, and he was becoming more and more irate by the second about his damn fountain drink. So I did the only thing I could think of. I pissed myself and started yelling my water broke. That got people moving so damn fast out of their way that we were finally able to lose the guy in the crowd. We made it home with no other incidences, and the entire time, my cousin was apologizing for being so absolutely clueless about the situation after I explained to her I wasn't in labor and I just pissed myself. I still have no idea what that guy was after, but I really feel like he slipped something into that drink. So, Mr. Pepsi Pusher pervert, let's not meet. Old band director. All the Christmas songs and TV shows are starting to remind me of when I was a child in grade school many years ago. At holiday time, there would always be a Christmas concert. I remember the band director appeared like a jolly old Santa Claus. He looked like Burl Eves. If you remember, he was personified as the snowman narrator in the Rudolph Claymation special. Fast forward a few years later, in 4th grade, and I'm old enough to join the band. So with enthusiasm, I joined it as a drummer. I come to find out, he's not really the jolly old fat man I believed. He is a complete asshole. He puts on such a front in the presence of the school, but was a completely different person behind the scenes. The drum team is all boys, myself included. We have these private lesson sessions with him, as the rest of the band did. He does not teach us music, he screams at us, and threatens us for a half hour several times a week. Tells us he hates drummers because they are boys. Tells us that we should just quit. Some did. Screams at us if we don't play something right. But he never even taught us how to play. I had to have my parents pay for private lessons for me at the local music store so I could learn how to play. These sessions were so dreadful. Instead of learning music, We were learning how he was so strong he could rip a bull apart with his bare hands, how he could kick our asses, and how he would not hesitate to shoot anyone who trespassed on his property. When we had group sessions with the entire band, something seemed even more off with him. He was staring so hard and focusing so much on the young pretty girls in the band. He would direct all of his attention to them. The weekly threats and insults continued, but then the holiday time came, and we performed in front of the school, and he was suddenly the jolly old fat man again. A few years later, it was said, in one of the wind instrument private lessons with him, he was chasing two girls around with his pants unbuckled and lowered. Luckily, someone else that worked at the school walked in on this commotion and caught him in the act of this disgusting chase. The school, for whatever reason, allowed him to resign on the spot instead of getting fired. I guess he could keep his pension or whatever. Fast forward several years later, I'm about 17, much bigger, and I run into this piece of crap at a pizza shop. He looks at me, but probably doesn't recognize me, as I obviously changed between 4th and 11th grade. It took everything in me to not say something to him. As I was no longer a young kid in fear, I was just staring him down, waiting for one of his old abusive comments to come out, so I could shove his pizza somewhere the sun didn't shine on him for me and everyone else. It never came to that, though. He just grabbed his pizza and ran out the door and sped away. Never saw him again. By the way, I hate that Burl Eve snowman.